I don't think there's probably a bigger conversation to talk about right now than Cole Palmer. Do you want to get us started?
Yeah. I'll happily start talking about the greatest player on the planet at this moment in time. England's Player of the Year, Player of the Month, the Premier League. Well, I mean, it'll obviously be Chelsea's Player of the Month. I think Cole Palmer he's simply fantastic. I continuously run out of words to describe him. He's putting in Hazard-esque levels of kind of what do we do? Give the ball to Palmer, but there feels almost like there's a more of an inevitability about Palmer, because at the moment, as things stand, Palmer is averaging a goal contribution for Chelsea a game at least. And I mean, I don't from an outsider's point of view, I don't know how you feel, but I genuinely think if England had won the Euros, Palmer would be in the top 3 conversation for the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, I mean, he's fantastic. I love Cole Palmer. He makes me want to watch football. Makes me want to watch Chelsea as well as that. But yeah, he's just so good. I mean, anytime he gets on the ball, you think something might happen, whether that's out wide, inside, even coming in a lot deeper. Obviously, he can spray. I think he's got some of the most accurate long ball percentages in the world, not only just the Premier League as well. So he can certainly come in and affect play from not just up front or, towards the front of the pitch, but from up further back a little bit as well, almost like that quarterback role. I think he is better when he's further forward, though, just because he's such a goal threat.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as he's in the final third, he looks to shoot, which is just a massive breath of fresh air almost, because a lot of players, although they get into those areas, they don't necessarily always look towards goal. They don't want to have the responsibility of possibly giving the ball away, but he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like, he'll quite happily shoot from 30 yards, 3 yards, 10 yards. It just doesn't matter. I think that's what's so good about him is, as you say, there's that inevitability of something's going to happen at some point. We just have to wait. I think the only couple of things which take away perhaps from the Ballon d'Or shouts that have been put up by you is probably the fact that he is playing for Chelsea still. Didn't have obviously some of the success that a lot of the other players on that list might have, like a Rodri, obviously won the Euros, won the Premier League. That does a lot more for the Ballon d'Or than goals and assists do, sadly.
Yeah.
I think Cole Palmer is definitely in the shouts. Obviously, as you say, Player of the Month this month, England's Player of the Year. I think that one's slightly controversial because he didn't really play for England too much, but I think that's more of I think it was voted for by the fans.
No, it's voted by the players.
Is it? Oh my God. Wow, that's even more of a boost to him.
It just tells, I mean, in my head, it tells you his level. Like, you've got the best players in the country collectively saying that he's been the best player this year. And kind of going off your inevitability thing and kind of the fact he doesn't really care about pressure. Like, doesn't start a single game at the Euros, which is a stick he's been beaten with to why he shouldn't have the men's Player of the Year. But one of his first touches in the final is he shoots from outside the box and whips into the bottom corner, brings England straight back into the game. And that's the sort of thing I mean. Comes on against the Netherlands, gets the assist. Palmer makes teams tick and he makes players better, which, I mean, I personally think that's a trait that you don't find in a lot of footballers.
No, and I think it just feels like everyone wants to be around him. Everyone wants to play with him as well. I think if we see him score at Chelsea, everyone runs over towards him. They want to be around him. They want to touch him, those sort of things. I think it's those little details that when they're there, you kind of see that, like, this guy's really special. And there's no bigger compliment than obviously your peers saying that you are the best as well. The fact that they didn't vote for Foden, who won obviously the PFA Player of the Year. In fact, obviously Cole Palmer did win Young Player of the Year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're looking at someone really special. And I think certainly if he keeps up his level doing what he's doing, he might get options outside of Chelsea coming for him quite quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really want to think about that. But kind of, if a team did come in for him, it would have to be like 200 million. Like, if you were to buy a Mbappe, if you were to buy a Vinicius Junior, if you were to buy a Rodri, I mean, Rodri would be cheaper because of his position, but players of that ilk, kind of, if you think about when PSG signed Neymar, I mean, yes, it was from Barcelona, but it cost them, what, nearly 200 million quid. And so to prize someone like that away from a club, it would almost be impossible. It would have to be like a completely immoral amount of money and especially with the way the market's going, it could arguably be more than 200.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at someone who could potentially, obviously, be the most expensive player ever. If someone was to go for him and he was to keep up his levels, there's no reason as to why that couldn't be more than a Neymar figure. I hope it's not, just because I don't like players going for that much money, regardless.
I hope it's not, because he's never leaving Chelsea.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, no, I just hope he can keep it up for England's sake, for his sake. I love watching him play. I love his interviews as well. I think he's brilliant. I think he's almost... He's not got the biggest personality in the sense of he does all these interviews and he speaks really well, like a Jude Bellingham. But like, I feel as though the fact that he's a little bit more... He's got a wall up of he doesn't want to give too much away. But it just comes across so well as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I could watch 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 content all day long if I wanted to. I think most people kind of feel the same way. The only thing I'm slightly interested is when things start to go a little bit wrong. Obviously, we haven't seen that at any point in his career so far. How would he respond to everything not going completely right with him so far?
I don't know if I agree with that, because I mean, if you look at the Chelsea team that he came into, it was an absolute mess. All the reports, people are having to sit on the floor, like things like that. That's not an easy. It's not an easy environment to come into. 45 million quid, having played less than 10 games in the Premier League. I don't know if he'd started. I can't remember if he'd started for City in the Premier League. And then for a large majority of the season, we were sitting in 10th, and he was still coming up with goals, assists. He was carrying the team on his back with kind of seemingly no complaints and seemingly with relative ease. And so I don't know if it's fair to say for things to go wrong. I mean, I guess kind of he's never been like in a bad spell of form.
Yeah, that's more what I was getting at, is from like a personal perspective. I think that's one of the things that pushed 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 into one of those, is he one of the best players in the league conversations quite early, was the fact that he was doing it at a Chelsea side where you say there was so many issues behind the scenes. I think there was obviously instances where players were taking the ball off for the penalties, had a bit of problems with 𝗕𝗹𝗹 at some points as well. So I think that obviously puts him in good stead. But I was more talking from like a personal form perspective.
Yeah.
If he goes 5, let's say even, dare I say, 10 games without a goal, then what happens? Because we've seen a couple of players do it for a season and a half. It's quite hard to do it for 2, especially more than 2 as well.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what happens this season nonetheless with him. But I genuinely think there's no problems. I think this is someone who's going to go right to the very top of the game.
Kind of one more point of kind of what more does he have to do to be kind of unanimously considered the best player in the world. I think it was quite interesting. I can't remember where he said it, but Jamie Carragher said 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 doesn't need to improve to be the best player in the world. He just needs to keep ticking along doing what he's doing. And I think that's a really interesting thought, because kind of a lot of people have always, you think, how do they become the best player in the world? They need to improve. Whereas there's a lot to be said for consistency. A lot of people say the best ability is availability. Kind of, if you're able to keep that level for so long, say that's 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶's level here. There might be a player that kind of like waves up and higher but peaks slower. If you can keep that level, I think that says a lot for being the best player in the world. Yeah,
I think we saw it with Salah a couple of years ago as well. He started the season fabulously, and then people started saying, well, is he the best in the world? And some people say yes, just because there's a bank of evidence which suggests that he really is, because you go, okay, season 1 did well, season 2 did well, season 3 did well. And there's, as I say, there's that bank of like, you can't deny that. And I think that's the only thing that 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 has right now, is some people say that obviously Haaland's the best in the league. He's got 2 or 3 seasons in the Premier League now of goals. And then obviously behind that as well, he's got Champions League performances for Dortmund, unbelievable goals at Dortmund as well. And I think that's the sort of like pushing factor towards as to why those players obviously get the best in the world shouts a lot earlier than 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 has done so far, or a lot louder than 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 has so far.